Hi again, everybody. John Hershey here at the Pennsylvania Farm Show, and I'm honored right now to be interviewing Secretary of Agriculture Russ Redding from the Pennsylvania Department of Ag. Secretary Redding, thank you for being here.
Great to see you. Welcome to the Farm Show.
Yeah,
congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So, what would you say is the state of agriculture right now in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? You know it well.
Right.
We're challenged, I'd say, just because of where dairy prices are, where the commodity prices are. 70 inches of rain in 2018 didn't help matters any, right?
No,
we're
not
challenged. But I say to everybody, take a long view of this business. If you're in it, that's not a year-to-year, season-to-season conversation. So we feel good about it. We've got a lot of good things going on in terms of ag processing and opportunities around the poultry industry and the green industry, a lot of the vegetables and fruits. So there's a lot of good things as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So I get dairy questions a lot, both from my district and from my family.
Yes. Right.
So do you want to explain? I was reading a little bit about the dairy development plan and what you guys are doing there.
Yeah. Well, we felt, this goes back about 2 years ago, when we started to see those sort of storm clouds, around dairy. It's actually about 2.5 years ago, and we felt like it was important to have somebody other than the Department of Agriculture take a look at it. So we had 3 economists, one from New York, one from Minnesota, and one from Wisconsin, look at Pennsylvania dairy. And the conclusion was a couple of things. One, we can compete, but it does require some changes. And one of those changes around sort of investments in additional dairy processing. That was the genesis of, so you look at the dairy development plan you mentioned, part of that was predicated on that study. The dairy investment program, the legislature supported last year, that's the $5 million investment program, was based on that dairy development plan. So I feel like we've done our homework, we've set it up. It doesn't change the markets, right? Because there's still some fundamentals involved here. But we have seen some positive signs of dairy in recent weeks. The Farm Bill, it's not sliding back where it was. Farm Bill gives us some hope around the program changes we need to make. We're making some investments. The first round of applications for the dairy investment program, there were 28. So it gives me I'm encouraged, right?
Good.
I didn't know what we would get. So a lot of good things on dairy. We'll keep working at it, have to keep getting consumers connected back to Pennsylvania dairy consumption. That's a really important part.
Great.
Yeah.
So another question I had for you, actually, of course, you and I didn't write the Farm Bill, but how does it benefit Pennsylvania, and what are Pennsylvania farmers seeing from that?
Well, I'm hopeful that they see a lot of benefit. We were worried about what that Farm Bill was actually going to look like for Pennsylvania. It looks like Pennsylvania, so I think that's a good thing. The dollars are right, they're divided right. It's got money for conservation in there and additional resources for the Chesapeake Bay. There's dairy revenue program, the old market protection program was modified.
Right.
Really significant changes made. That was a big issue in the last Farm Bill. We have additional resources for some trade assistance, risk management, food and nutrition. It looks good for Pennsylvania. The key is to get those programs sort of activated as quick as we can now, right? And I think we're going to hopefully get the USDA functioning here soon, again, so they can work on it. Industrial hemp is in there as one of those new changes in the Farm Bill.
Right.
So, but I think for us, Chesapeake Bay and having money for conservation work, dairy, and then particularly around the food and nutrition for Pennsylvania is important.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a lot of people don't always realize that the Farm Bill, it's not just farm assistance, it's also food, nutrition, conservation. There's so much that goes into it.
Yeah.
So one other thing I hear from farmers and business people is, from the state and federal levels, is they have trouble with regulations, and some people feel that their farms are being over-regulated and that kind of thing. What are you guys doing as an administration to help them and to help them comply and to work more with that? Yeah,
it's a good question. I mean, so it's one that comes up every time we get into a conversation about the Chesapeake Bay, and it's other times, but this has been one where it really brings to the surface this issue of the permit, what permits are required. In Pennsylvania, it's sort of an interesting mix because you have local government control, so townships have a lot to say about what happens with building permits and what happens with conservation work and requirements, particularly around stormwater. So we've got to sort of be sensitive to that piece. We're trying to do a couple of things. One, the Secretary of DEP and I have talked a lot about, through our State Conservation Commission, about expediting permits, and we've made some progress.
Great.
There's another group of actions that we're hopeful we can take where if the farm has got a conservation plan, they've got the nutrient management plan, they're implementing those plans, is that we can set it up for a much quicker and expedited review of their building permits if they want to expand or something. So that's on the horizon. That's not done yet.
Great.
Right?
Hey, that's great news.
Yeah, but I think keeping that in front of us, you're going to be there. You're going to keep prompting us to say, what are you doing? What are you doing? That's a fair question.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's next to the economy at the farm, the question of regulations and how do we manage that, right? Folks are saying, I don't want to be regulated, right?
Right.
They're saying, if I've got to be regulated, how do I do that as efficiently and as predictably as I can?
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's not that they don't want regulations entirely, but they just want to know how they can comply with them better and that sort of thing.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think that's part of our challenge, and you're trying to work back through 2 agencies and our conservation districts and use those folks who are trusted entities in that conversation become really important.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So what jobs and what industries within ag would you say are growing fastest in Pennsylvania right now?
Yeah, so I mean, there are a couple. I mean, certainly and they don't sound like very specific ag jobs, but things like transport, anybody with a CDL is really important. That's just as a general category. The conservation resources, conservation technician is important. Veterinary technician, veterinary science generally, but the technician has really been important. Food, not necessarily food safety, food processing are important. Sales and marketing are important, and identified as high priority occupations for ag.
And how can we as government officials or public servants, how can we help fill these positions that are open?
Well, we're going to try a couple of things. One is, I think for the Department of Agriculture and Department of Education and Labor and Industry, so that triangle, you're making sure that we've got the right policies, first of all, right? And I think it sounds simple, but historically, the agricultural occupations haven't risen to the level of a high priority occupation, and or the agribusiness community, the agricultural community has not used those programs like other industries have, right? And I think that's a part of it. Secondly, just looking at what the actual skills and competencies of those jobs are. For some, it'll be a credential of maybe an apprenticeship, right? For others, it may be the degrees that are required or some micro-credentialing. Making sure that the state programs reflect that need of agriculture, and particularly the seasonality of some of those jobs, is something we should really look hard at.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of good stuff going on. Anxious to work with you on some of the workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, this is in your wheelhouse of appreciation for what you hear, what you see from your family and your own professional work. So
yeah,
it'll be
thank
good.
you. I appreciate that. So one more question for you. This is the toughest one I got here. There's one food I need to try at the farm show. What is it?
I'll direct you to the warm apple dumpling with ice cream.
Okay, great. That's a new one. I can do that.
It is a new one. So you could give you all the other traditional stuff, but you go to the food court, the apple marketing, the apple growers there.
Yeah.
Right? It's really good.
Great.
So
all right, I'll check
that
out.
Yeah.
Apple pie is my favorite dessert, so we
yeah.
can make
Well,
that
this is pretty close.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
It's good.
Sounds good.
Have fun.
Mr. Secretary, thank you for your time.
Yeah, congratulations. Look forward to working with you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.